Welcome to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. It's good to have you with us today, folks. We are broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you this hour by Extreme Exteriors. And this is kind of legislative day, or kind of...
We do have a couple stories about state legislators,
That's
don't
right.
we?
And even things that are happening right here. This last week, the Minnesota State Legislature began its session. And already on Tuesday, this last week, the very first day, there was a bill introduced affecting tenants and also homeowners in homeowner associations. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. We've got some feedback from a listener that we're going to be sharing in just a moment.
And we want more feedback from our listeners.
Exactly.
We want you to call us and leave a message on our hotline at 952-224-2668 or email Gene, Gene, at ncmgi.com. Let us know what you think of the state legislation that's cropping up all over the place.
And we'll be talking about that in just a little bit. But first, let's talk, let's bring up, this is an email that we received from a listener this last week in Coon Rapids, Minnesota, and it is Dear Gene and Tony. After listening to your show last week on the Arizona state senator who wanted to give what amounts to free rein to dog owners by not forcing them to have their pets restrained by a leash, to me is absolutely ridiculous. I am a dog owner, and I can tell you that I, for one, would not appreciate trusting some people's sense of decorum when it comes to how their dog behaves. I don't want a big slobbery dog jumping on me on my way to a business meeting. And if I have a small dog, I don't want another dog jumping on top of him or choosing to use him as a chew toy. I only hope that our legislators here in Minnesota have more common sense than that. Signed, Betty in Coon Rapids.
No kidding. If you recall the story last week, somebody wants to repeal leash laws in Arizona so that people can let their dogs run free. But she makes a very good point. Even if it's a very friendly, sweet dog, you don't want it running loose, running up to you unexpectedly, jumping on you when you're wearing your nylons, or scaring a child.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, Betty, you have full agreement from all of us
From us.
here that that is absolutely ridiculous. You're right. Hey, let's before we turn on to that story that I talked about with the Minnesota legislature and what happened on opening day. If this is a sign of things to come, we've got a lot to talk about in the next few months, Tony. But before we do that, there have been some huge major changes with the U.S. Postal system, and I think that's going to create a lot of changes in service and expectations that homeowners have with their homeowners association. And I thought it was worthy of us taking a look at here and talking about here on the show. Folks, if you aren't aware, I guess this goes back to this last fall, but in September this last year, the United States government said, we're in a quandary here. The United States Postal Service is probably about $20 billion in debt with from what they brought in. And so they are proposing some changes just this next year now in 2012.
Well, and I think they've actually started enacting these changes, haven't they?
Yes, you're right. Some of these started back in the fall, but we're going to see the full effect of that
by the end of the year.
By the end of the year here in 2012. And this comes from National Public Radio from December 5th, and it begins by saying, dropping a first-class letter in the mail in the morning and expecting it will get to its destination by the next day is going to be a thing of the past under changes with the U.S. Postal Service. And here is some of the things that they're talking about, folks. Now, with the United States Postal Service, they have what is called a processing facility.
Okay.
And those are hubs where that are open 24/7, and mail is being processed through about right now 480 to 490 some facilities around our
Processing
country.
centers. I know there's a big one in Burnsville.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so from these locations, then it goes out to the smaller
Individual post offices.
Post offices, yes. And so they said they're going to need to, as a means of cutting and getting to that $20 billion mark, their goal is just to save $5 billion in 2012.
Okay. All right.
Baby steps.
They're going to try and do 25%.
$5 billion
Okay.
is baby steps. And
Wow.
here's some of the baby steps. Number one, out of the 487 processing facilities, cut it down to 250.
They're going to close 250.
Yeah. So they're going to have about half
Wow.
of what is present now. I got to believe that that's going to make a dent on the kind of service we get with our mail.
Absolutely. How about a dent on jobs?
Yeah. You're right. It says an elimination of about 28,000 jobs with the U.S. Postal Service.
That's gonna affect everyone.
Yeah, it is. And later on in that NPR report, they had a conversation with the U.S. Postmaster General, Patrick Donahoe. And he had some things that I thought were really interesting. He brought up, he said, the way that people use the mail, people's habits in communicating are so much different now than they were even 10, 12 years ago. And the ultimate, I guess, with that is that you're seeing the U.S. Postal Service not making money because there's not enough mail going through.
Well,
the
and why is
system.
that? That's because everyone's using email every possibility. It's
That's
free,
one of the first
it's
things.
fast, and it's acceptable.
Yeah. And so, you find out, you take a look at, I remember when we first got email with our company back in the late 1990s.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things that we were told by our clients at that time, that's ridiculous. Don't send us anything by email. Most of us don't even have email. We're not going to use it. Just keep sending everything to us through the mail.
USPS, yep.
Yet one of the complaints that a lot of associations have when they want to trim costs, they say, "Oh, management company, there's too much you're mailing. You don't have to mail as much as you do."
So we get mixed messages.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Or
want
they
to cut
say,
down on the postage.
Yeah, or too many copies here. There's too
Yeah.
many copies
Yeah.
with the information. So let's cut down. So email has certainly provided that, hasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, that's right. And how are these closings, you think, and this reduction in service from the post office going to affect homeowners associations in particular, Gene?
Well, I think some of that is going to be because when you see some of the changes taking place that they're proposing just in 2012, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. If they said this is just trying to get to $5 billion of that $20 billion deficit, they've got a long ways to go, and there's going to be other significant cuts. If this is what they can do on the first salvo, we're going to see things that are going to really interrupt the service in a more dramatic way. One way that is going to affect homeowners, I think in a big way, is in the payment of their monthly assessments to their association.
Because right now we send out statements every month with a return envelope, and many, many people still mail back a check to
That's
pay
correct.
for their monthly assessment, correct?
And people, and even if people don't use the United States mail, a lot of people use what would be called bill pay through their bank.
Okay.
They don't realize that when they use a bill pay, that doesn't mean that the bank itself is doing an electronic transfer from their account to their association's bank account. They do the same thing that you did before that, and that was they create a check, a physical check that gets put in the mail.
That's right.
And that needs to go out.
That's right.
And so now you're looking at mail that is going out, and if you have this kind of cut in services, I don't think
It's
you
going
can
to take even
expect-
longer. People are confused
Yeah.
about that. I had someone just last week tell me, I paid online on Friday. So I started looking and down in accounting, asking accounts receivable, did you check this online payment? Did it come in on? No, it didn't. No, it didn't. 1 day later, no, it didn't. 2 days later, no, it didn't. So I started contacting him again. It turns out what he did was he went online and created a bill pay at his bank. So he wasn't aware that that meant the bank was going to cut a check, possibly the following Monday, not on that Friday, and then put it in the mail. We didn't get it till a week after he told us he paid online. So
he was thinking that because I'm using the computer, it's instantaneous.
It's online.
But
whatever.
That's not the case.
No, that's not the case.
Folks, if you are using a bill pay service, one of the things you should really take and research with your bank, and that is how long do they keep the money, for example, before they even send out the check and create it. I've known that there are some banks that will go anywhere between 2 to 5 days where they will immediately take that money when you request a check to be paid. They pull it out of your account, and then it's 2 to 5 days before the check is actually physically cut and placed in the mail.
So where is that money after they've taken it out of your account?
Well, I think banks are using that float in that float time with all of the hundreds of thousands of customers that they have, and they make money.
They make some interest on that.
Interest.
Yeah.
So, there are some major changes that you need to be aware of with the Postal Service.
It's going to take longer for your payments to reach anyone if you send it by mail.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. We get complaints about that all the time. I mailed it yesterday, or I mailed it Monday. Why haven't you gotten it yet?
Yeah.
Well, because we haven't gotten it yet.
One good reason for what people refer to as ACH, where there's an automatic debiting. If you want something that is going to be out of your account and in to the person you owe money to, if you use an ACH, an automatic debiting, that's the only thing that I know of right now that will immediately transfer funds from one bank account to the other.
That's right.
And that payment
and you
is
can
made.
set that up as a regular payment every month.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
A very easy thing to do.
Yeah.
We need to take another break, but folks, when we come back, we're going to talk about opening day in Minnesota State Legislature, what has taken place with already a bill affecting tenants and owners in a homeowners association. We'll cover that after these messages.